Okay, so Bruce Rauner is rich. Anybody not know that? But a new example of just how rich has some people stunned. All this while Governor Quinn living on the minimum wage these days, just $79 for the week. We've got no shortage of wacky news in Illinois politics this week, so of course, here to break it all down, the Common Sense Caucus returns. Joining us here in our WGN studios, Eric Zorn, a columnist at the Chicago Tribune, and over at the Tribune Tower, Chicago Tribune editorial board member Kristen McQueary. Both of you guys are back, and welcome. I want to kick this off as we talk about these guys' views on the minimum wage. Let me start with Rauner, because as you know, the Tribune, your colleagues at the Tribune, had a great story last week about the relationship between Rahm Emanuel and Bruce Rauner, but a picture paints 1,000 words. There was a picture of Rahm and Bruce holding some very expensive wine. He got pushed on just how expensive that wine is. Here's what Mr. Rauner said.
You belong to a wine club that costs $100,000 to be a member of?
I have many investments, and I'm a member of many clubs.
So that is a yes?
Yes.
So yes, he's a member. Now, on the other side of the coin, Governor Pat Quinn living on minimum wage. Well, sounds like he's starving. Here's what he had to say.
Well, you know, yesterday I went to a place and maybe I would have gotten iced tea, but I got water, you know. And, you know, you don't go in and get a double cheeseburger. I got a junior cheeseburger, okay? And I had graham crackers for dinner, I guess. So you obviously have to make sacrifices.
Sacrifices indeed. Eric Zorn, you say all of this discussion between them as it relates to the minimum wage issue, it's really a lot ado about nothing.
What a couple of great stories, huh? Putting right together Pat Quinn going on his doing his Walter Jacobson routine where he's eating, drinking water and eating crackers for dinner and so on. And then you've got this you know, 0.001% thing where Rauner belongs to a wine club that, what does it cost, $140,000 just to join the club?
Right.
I mean, it's more than most people make, twice as much as most people make. And, you know, I think you said earlier, don't we all know that Bruce Rauner is rich? Well, yeah, we know Bruce Rauner is rich, but I do believe that a lot of people are just starting to pay attention to this race right now as we turn the corner into September. And that, no, people don't know a lot about Bruce Rauner. He's introducing himself to them, and the fact that he's mega wealthy is new to a lot of people.
So, Kristen, maybe this to you, the Quinn thing is a bit of a stunt, but when you juxtapose it with the expensive wine, does it take on a little more gravitas?
I suppose that's the point, but I think we all know Bruce Rauner's rich. He made $108 million between 2010 and 2012. If he wants to spend $100,000 on a wine club membership, I don't have a problem with that. I want to know more about how these candidates are going to move the state forward. Yes, does it look bad that Governor Pat Quinn is eating crackers for dinner, but I don't really want to hear Governor Pat Quinn complaining about living, you know, on crackers and having to order iced tea at restaurants either. I think it was kind of a bad week for both of them.
Yeah, he does make $147,000 a year, so he's eating graham crackers as a demonstration project this week about the minimum wage. But it is really helping to bring that minimum wage issue into focus even more than it already has been. I mean, we've got Mayor Emanuel just today is talking about how he's going to be paying more city contractors more than he used to be paying them. You've got this fast food strike scheduled for Thursday in Chicago and a bunch of other cities around the country. They're striking for $15 an hour wages. You've got President Obama on Monday giving a speech up in Milwaukee calling for an increase in the minimum wage. It's a big issue right now in the political season.
You know, Kristen,
Let
me just add, Paul Vallis was on the show last night, and I sort of brought up this eating crackers thing and said, but I'm sure the governor had his security close at hand and his limousine parked near. I mean, the point, I think anybody who truly is living at this standard of wage is buying this. Maybe they are.
No. I think it's insulting, actually, because I think people who are really struggling to get by, it's not lost on them that Governor Quinn is a single 65-year-old man who doesn't have mouths to feed at home. And if we want to improve the lives, if we want to lift people out of poverty, raising the minimum wage and giving them a little bit of extra money per hour is not going to do it. There are better and smarter ways to help lift people out of poverty, and just talking about the minimum wage is not going to do it.
Well, I disagree with that, with the fact that people are going to resent that. I think a lot of people who are living really close to the edge will admire the governor for this symbolic gesture, for drawing attention to the way they do live their lives. And so I think that it is a politically smart move on his part, as long as he doesn't talk too much about all the little things that he's eating, just keeping it a little simple. But it is important, and I think a lot of people do feel like, you know, the minimum wage is like worth about two-thirds of what it was worth back in 1968 when it was at its high point in terms of real dollar value. And this wage is low. It's low internationally, and it's time that we brought it up. And I think people feel that. And you look at the polls, and they show an overwhelming support. Our Tribune poll a couple of weeks ago showed 70-80% support for that.
Well, Kristen, let me go to you on that. Pick that up on the minimum wage. I know you're not a big fan of the minimum wage increase, and yet you heard what Eric said. The polls say people want it.
Well, they want it. It sounds good. You sound heartless if you don't favor a hike in the minimum wage. But we have, 92 different federal anti-poverty programs that have done really nothing to lift people out of poverty since the 1960s. If you want to help people who are struggling, make it easier for them to still have access to child care subsidies and housing assistance when they start moving up the pay scale. Right now, if you start earning about $22,000 a year, you start losing all of these other subsidies. It doesn't make sense. We should be expanding the earned income tax credit for childless people in their 20s. That's something that both parties have agreed puts money into the pocket of working people. Instead, we just stay focused on this one issue of minimum wage, and I can show you studies. It does not lift people out of poverty.
Well, this issue's been studied for 100 years, literally 100 years. I was looking at the research yesterday, and you'll find economists all over the map on this, but for the most part, you find that lifting the minimum wage a modest amount has very little effect on employment, and it's stimulative to the economy, which is really important. You get more money in people's pockets, especially at the low end of the income scale, and they do spend that money, and that helps the economy.
The minimum wage hike that Governor Quinn is talking about would give the average minimum wage worker a couple of extra $1,000s per year to spend. I know that that's not chump change, but that is not lifting somebody from $17,000 a year to making $20,000 a year, is not fixing things. And some of the proposals they've been talking about, including Mayor Emanuel at the city, want to index the minimum wage to inflation so that it continues to rise. You talk to small business owners and franchisees who are the backbone of this economy, they will be going out of business if every year the minimum wage is indexed to inflation.
If we keep that wage low, we end up subsidizing these franchises and these big box stores and stuff because their employees don't make enough, even working full time, not to be on government assistance. So I think it's important to raise it a modest amount.
Kristen, let me just...
I guess we disagree.
Well, let me wrap up with you. I mean, look, your argument seems to be don't raise it at all because it's not going to really make a difference in people's lives. My question would be, if you don't raise it at all and you don't, well, then you'll never raise it, and so there'll never be any shift. Don't you have to at least take baby steps?
I think if you raise the minimum wage in conjunction with some of these other ideas that have worked, giving states more control over the $700 billion that we spend every year on poverty programs, making it easier for people to access these programs. I mean, a lot of these minimum wage workers who do get subsidies get stuck standing in long lines and going from office to office and taking a day off of work to fill out paperwork. We have a government that works in silos, and all of that needs to be changed.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I think you're absolutely right there, but I think that does not foreclose the idea of a modest increase in the minimum wage.
All right, guys, let's move on and talk about some surprising, or maybe not surprising, poll results. Taking a look at the race between Dick Durbin, incumbent, and Jim Oberweis, his Republican opponent for the U.S. Senate seat. A couple of different surveys have shown that race is a lot closer than Dick Durbin would like it to be, within 7 points, adding a margin of error, and it's almost neck and neck. Kristen, let me start with you. Dick Durbin need to be losing sleep at night?
I don't think he needs to be losing sleep, but I think some of those numbers are a little disconcerting that his approval rating is not higher than it should be. He's extremely well known. He's been in state government and now Congress for more than 30 years. I think he's just getting hit with the career politician label. I don't really think he's had a chance to run some negative ads on Jim Oberweis. I think once he starts doing that, Jim Oberweis has been a candidate who has shown himself to be a little bit tone deaf. I think Durbin's numbers will improve.
Yeah, I think that Durbin would clearly like this to be like 2008. Does anyone remember who he ran against in 2008? The dentist, I think it was Steve Sauerberg. The guy got 29% of the vote against Durbin. So, and that was a huge Democratic year. This is not going to be a huge Democratic year. I think everyone agrees that's the case. It's going to be a lot closer than that. And yeah, I think Oberweis is within striking distance. He does not have the support from the National Party right now that he would need to mount a full campaign against Durbin, a strong campaign against Durbin. So,
but Eric, let me ask you: Mitch McConnell in trouble in Kentucky, Eric Cantor lost in Virginia. Could this be an anti-incumbent situation? And that's what scares Durbin.
Yeah, it could be, yes. I mean, I think that if there's a Republican wave in this country, and if it hits Illinois, which it might, if Bruce Rauner wins, and you know, you're going to have a lot of people going to the ballot box saying throw those bums out. So yeah, I think that there is a potential there for this to be a much more interesting race, certainly than the last few times out for Durbin.
Kristen, let me also ask you, the survey went on, and one of the surveys went on to say, hey, look, for a guy that's been in public service for 30 years, are you more or less likely to support him? About 2/3 say less likely. Similarly, how about a guy that's run for office several times and lost? You want to support him? About 2/3 say no to him. So they both seem to have their baggage.
They do. I mean, this is Oberweis ran for governor, U.S. Senate previously, and Congress. He finally gets a seat in the state Senate and then turns around right away and starts running for a U.S. Senate seat and challenged a Republican in the primary who was kind of already accepted and slated by the party. So you have to question sometimes his judgment. I do think Dick Durbin is going to be in trouble in terms of the career politician label.
They're going to debate a couple, 2 or 3 times did they agree to debate this time?
Actually, I think there's only going to be one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think they're going to also be appearing at the Tribune editorial board, which is the real debate. So.
Right, exactly.
Oh, right.
And by the way,
Yes.
just as we wrap this up, it'll be interesting to watch the issues. Will this be about immigration? Will it be about serving in the Senate? We're going to see as time goes on. And always fun to talk to you guys. I enjoy doing this as our new feature every Wednesday so far. Eric Zorn, columnist at the Chicago Tribune, and over at Tribune Tower, Kristen McQueary, member of the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, and we'll be back with more politics tonight after these words. Stay with us.